What's going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with James Grande, bringing you the NBA DFS live stream for Tuesday's 4-game main slate. Late lock here today, James. Got 8 o'clock, so you got plenty of time bringing you fiddle around with your lineups to make those late changes to Carmelo Anthony starting tonight for the Portland Trailblazers. James, 20 minutes for him. I know we usually go position by position, but I just got to get your hot take here on Melo starting.
I really want, with Melo starting, I really want Brandon Ingram starting. So Brandon Ingram can absolutely torch the Carmelo Anthony-led Blazers. I mean, look, he has never been one to be afraid to shoot the basketball, and there's no Damian Lillard, and the Blazers are on a back-to-back. So maybe we see Melo take a whole bunch of shots in 20 minutes. 4-game slate. I've seen crazier things happen. We've seen Zach Randolph not play a game and be in this winning lineup last year, John. So if you want to play Carmelo, if he's starting, it's a really good matchup, right? The Pelicans are like the creme de la crop matchup. So if you want to play Carmelo, can't believe I'm saying this, but I guess it's fine.
20 minutes for Melo, no Lillard, like you said. I mean, if he is the Utah's monster that he was during his prime, he won't be. But I mean, like, you never know, right? Like in the matchup you mentioned against the Pelicans who play no defense. What's your over-under on ownership here? What do we think?
Cash games, less than 20%. Tournaments, maybe hovering around 20%. I think it's probably because name value more than like, wow, like this is Carmelo in its prime. It's not. So just for the simple fact that he's starting, there's no Lillard, there's a good matchup, it's a pace-up spot, I think he'll 25% ownership. 3.9, we're not going to see him at 3.9 for very long. Not to say he's going to be the 20 per game scorer again. He's probably not, but like we're going to probably see a consistent 5K Melo throughout the year,
4K,
right?
It's 4K on FanDuel as well. I mean, I haven't heard anything about Carmelo Anthony until he signed. Like, I don't know. Like, what kind of shape is he in? Has anybody Googled him? Like, I'm very curious after basically not playing basketball for a year, what he has left. Because, I mean, at the very least, and we talked about this on the podcast last night, he was always a very good, like, post player. He didn't really want to play down there. He wanted to shoot threes and stand outside. But, like, if you get him within that, like, 15-foot range and back his way down, like, he was a pretty solid NBA scorer from down there as well. So, yeah, I'm curious as well. But again, just his name value being on the small slate, I think it's going to be pretty interesting to say the least. What do we have here for injuries, James? Obviously, Dame Lillard is like the biggest name, but who else are we looking at?
I mean, honestly, the Pelicans are going to make or break the slate here, essentially. Like they've been every slate. I mean, we're waiting for Brandon Ingram news. He's questionable. We know Derek Favors is going to be out. We're waiting for Lonzo Ball. He's also questionable. He's missed a handful of games in a row. We know Josh Hart's going to be out. We know Frank Jackson's going to be out. Jahlil Okafor doubtful. So, like, there's a lot of moving parts there potentially, again, in New Orleans. And it's a really good matchup for them. So, we're really just kind of hanging in the balance there. I think Anthony Davis should be a question mark pretty much every game because there's clearly something wrong with the shoulder. And if it's not the shoulder, it's the ribs. But it looks like the shoulder. I mean, he shot 5 of 12 and 5 of 14. I mean, this is a guy who was taking 20-plus shots earlier in the year, 20-plus shots the last, 3 years. Why is he suddenly not shooting? I don't think he can lift his arm because his shoulder is just bothering him that much. So I think that should be something worth monitoring just consistently. And Ricky Rubio, game-time decision. We don't know. He kind of was all of a sudden doubtful and then all of a sudden out. Like he just suddenly wasn't playing last night. So, also Aaron Baines. I forgot Aaron Baines is also questionable, right. Which would be interesting because they don't have they have Frank Kaminsky, but I don't know if Kaminsky could hang with Rashawn Holmes on the interior. I don't think he could bang with Rashawn Holmes in the interior.
Never mind a motivated Rashawn Holmes.
A motivated Rashawn
Holmes game for Rashawn Holmes there.
True. And I mean that could be interesting. But Kaminsky himself is a little banged up. Officially game time decision. I know it came out. I believe it's leaning towards probable that he's going to play. But if they both sit, I mean, I told you my sneaky play of the day off air, and we'll get to him at the power forward position. But it's only a 4-game slate, so I think these are the slates that you take chances in tournaments. These are the slates that you have a fringe guy, he's questionable. You're playing over on FanDuel. You're like, crap, what do I do? Well, you take a shot on a guy who is coming off the bench at 3,600, 3,700, who could end up starting and get him at 100% ownership. But those are really the only injuries when we move over to Vegas. We got some good totals. At least the Portland-New Orleans game, 230.5, only dropped off 2 points with the Lillard news. It started at 232.5, down to 230.5. New Orleans now favored by 1 with Lillard being out. Golden State, Memphis, 221, 6-point spread. Really fast-paced game there. Phoenix, Sacramento, 217, 2.5-point favorites for Sacramento home. Sacramento, huge pace-up spot for them. Phoenix playing at the 9th fastest pace, and Sacramento 26th. So huge pace-up spot. And then Oklahoma City on the back-to-back. Do you think we start seeing Chris Paul rest, or do you think that they're kind of showing teams that he's healthy and he can play on back-to-backs? They're using that as a leverage to just as trade bait, right? Let's play Chris Paul all the minutes we can, show everyone that he's still Chris Paul,
right?
And let's get rid of him. Or do you think that we start seeing him sit back-to-backs because they did play a tough game? Not that they traveled. They stayed in L.A. They played the Clippers. So, but do you think we could potentially start – I don't know. It just – the way that the NBA is these days,
yeah,
I feel like every back-to-back there's at risk. Somebody sitting, somebody big. So Chris Paul just obviously comes to mind right away, which I think is a great transition into point guard.
Yeah, let's get into it. Like I said, it's a small slate, so not a ton of key names really here to go over, especially on FanDuel. I feel like it's
John, we got Pelicans news.
Yep, I'm looking at it right now. A lot of big
Brandon Ingram in, Frank Jackson in. So
that kind of sucks, to be honest with you.
It does kind of suck, but before it does suck because NAW's value is kind of killed. They still probably think you can play him in tournaments. Obviously, depending, we didn't get Lonzo news yet. Lonzo is still a question. Frank Jackson will play. Brandon Ingram will play. Lonzo, no.
It's mostly the Ingram news because I don't think he's going to play full minutes. He's coming off, 4 games where he missed due to a knee injury. But him being on the floor and playing 25 minutes, we'll say, it just takes away from guys like Redick that I wanted to play. The usage is now going to shift probably to Ingram, I would assume, when he's on the floor. Oh, yeah. And that's just going to kill the upside of guys. Kendrick Williams is even start now. Where do they go?
Well, they did. So they did that last game he played on the 9th. They started him at small forward, and they started Kendrick Williams at power forward. So my assumption
that was the day they had Drew at point guard, right?
No. I think either way we could see because they, in the beginning of the year they started Redick off the bench. Don't forget, they had Redick coming off the bench, so they were playing Lonzo, Drew. Actually, were they starting Redick at small forward? I guess they were starting him at small forward, and then he shifted to the bench at some point where they were playing Ingram at power forward. But I guess it depends on Lonzo's status, right? If Lonzo sits, they probably start Drew at point guard, and then we see Kendrick Williams start at power forward and JJ still in the rotation. But if Lonzo plays, do you think Kendrick goes to the bench, or do you think JJ goes to the bench?
I feel like they'll probably shift JJ back to the bench because that's where he was. I think so as
well. And that kind of kills his value at 5,100, right?
Yep, probably. I agree with you.
But if we get
again, we still think that he may be limited though. So,
but if he's not, 7,200 against Carmelo.
That's nice.
Sorry, I know we do position by position, but obvious news.
It's big news to talk about.
Right, contingent upon the news.
So what else are we looking at then? We'll talk about the top. Obviously, there's no Lillard there. Who's your top point guard then on tonight's slate?
Point guard kind of sucks. I do like the fact that John Morant has been playing minutes. That Denver game was a blowout. I will axe that off. But the 2 games prior, 30 minutes in both. We saw 30 and 30, 44 and 42 fantasy points. I think John Morant in a really good spot against the Warriors, who are allowing near the most fantasy points to opposing point guards. I mean, league average 47 per game. They're averaging 50, or Golden State is allowing 50 rather. So I love John Morant, 6,700 on DK, much more reasonable of a price. I know his FanDuel price is a little up there, 8,400. I don't think I'm going to touch him at 8,400, but I'm definitely down at 6,700. I'd be interested to see what the Thunder do with Chris Paul. I think Chris Paul has been playing really well. I mean, 38 fantasy points over his last 5 games, 31 minutes. I love the minutes at 31. He's played all back-to-backs this year. So I think Chris Paul could be interesting at 7K. And then it just falls off a cliff. I think Kai Bowman is fine. I was pretty set on him playing like 25 to 28 minutes, even with Draymond starting at point guard. I think that exact situation happens again. I don't love the matchup against Morant. I think Morant's a very good defender, very athletic. He presents a lot of problems for a smaller Bowman, but 4,700 is a really good price tag in a really good pace-up spot against Memphis. I think Rajon Rondo is obviously interesting in tournaments. I mean, we've seen 14, 18, 24 minutes, and now there's no minutes restriction. And something that Frank Vogel said earlier in the year, which is probably still going to hold true, maybe it happens tonight, maybe it doesn't. He said Rondo, when he returns, will start a lot of games, exactly what he said. And we don't know if that's every game, every other game, every 5 games. But he said a lot of games Rondo will start. Now that he's off his minutes restriction, there's no Avery Bradley. Maybe that just means we get Rajon Rondo. Nobody wants to KCP. Nobody cares about KCP. And I think Anthony Simons is the clear-cut, one of the chalkiest plays on the slate. He gets a massive usage bump. He's extremely cheap across the industry because obviously we didn't know about Damian Lillard sitting until halfway through the day today. And we've seen this kid score in bunches in 20 or so minutes. He's not a big peripheral stat guy, John, but he's going to shoot when he's on the floor. And obviously, when somebody has a high usage rate, it's something to take note of. And 4,400, I mean, I think LeBron is probably the chalkiest play of the slate now that we have the Pelicans news. Like, I think that's pretty safe. But it wouldn't surprise me to see Simons and McCollum right about like 2 and 3, right?
Yeah, I mean, I still think McCollum could definitely be there. I mean, I think they're all 3 should be 60, 70% on tonight.
In cash, yeah. I bet you Simons is 90 at 4,400 if he's starting. Yeah. If we get word that he's starting,
only 43 on FanDuel too, where it's much tougher. So like for sure.
And point guard sucks on FanDuel because you can't pay 8,400 for Morant.
Well, so this is the conversation I had in chat earlier today. Ideally, no, you shouldn't pay $8,400 on Morant, but this is a smaller slate where like some of the value's gone away, so it's probably a little bit more tougher than it was earlier when I was expecting a lot more of the Pelicans' value to still exist. But like if you go ahead and you get 25, 26 fantasy points from Morant, like, yeah, is it ideal at 8,400? No. It's 3-4x upside, but it's a smaller slate. How many guys now at point guard even really offer that much? And
not many.
Comparatively, Yeah, that's right. So I mean, like, yeah, it's not great for sure, but again, you kind of are stuck on FanDuel at least, looking at the other options. So it's really, you're punting with maybe a Rondo, like I said, Simons for sure, Kai Bowman. You're spending up and hoping that maybe Morant gets into a sprint and they can go and give him 30 minutes and he pays it off. So because Draymond isn't going to be able to cover him, so I'm not too worried about that. Let's go on over to shooting guard position. Drew Holiday, $9,000 on FanDuel. If everybody was out, I was definitely in on Drew Holiday. How do you feel now knowing that most people are active for Holiday?
I do want to quickly circle back and ask you one question about point guard. If Rubio sits, do we have any love for Javon Carter, min salary, or Tyler Johnson, 3,500?
Not really, no. I would have more interest, I feel like I would have more interest in Tyler Johnson because I know the offense can be there at times. But I mean, he wasn't good last year with Phoenix.
He wasn't. He was not at all. Well, that's because we know it's point Booker time if Rubio sits.
That's, exactly. So like, I'm not too worried about it. That's not really a spot that I'm going to be looking to go. I think Rondo is probably the cheapest I'm going on FanDuel at least. So
I'm also not going to pay that for Jrue Holiday. It's a good matchup. If you want to be different now, I think everyone is going to pivot off Jrue Holiday. If there was prior interest, I think the masses are now pivoting and spending their. Honestly, the clear-cut pivots are right below. You go Devin Booker, point Booker without Rubio, or you go CJ McCollum, or you go the Kings guys. So, like, if you want to be different, you could play Holiday. I mean, he's been better 2 of the last 3. He's flashed 50-plus upside. So if you want to do that, but we've seen Ingram be the man when he's healthy. So it's very hard to pay $9,000 and expect him to get. We're asking for 45. And like you said,
I'm hoping that we get where they're like Ingram starting, but we'll be limited to 25 minutes or something like that. Because then, like, at least Jrue is going to play 35, and a lot of that, half that time will be without Ingram on the floor, right? Like, I'd feel more comfortable paying for Jrue if I knew there was a limited Ingram in his future than an Ingram at full tilt. So, but yeah, I definitely agree with you there. You mentioned point Booker, of course. That's the best version. We think, even though it didn't really show out against Boston there. Sacramento. Smart got hurt in that game though, but yeah, I mean, that definitely Smart had a little bit to do with it. Jaylen Brown's also a good defender. We talk about Smart a lot, but Brown's actually a pretty solid defender in his own right. Healed, he faced the Celtics and went off, put up 57 fantasy points. So you were right. You nailed it. Those 3 guys. Redick's probably off for me now. We have an 11-point spread in the Thunder-Lakers game. Does Schroeder at all, just as like a punt play, or not punt play, but like a contrarian pivot, maybe game flow, interest you at all?
Yeah, so I was trying to I was thinking that exact thing, and because the back-to-back with Chris Paul, and I was curious, and the one back-to-back, John, that the Thunder have played this year, Dennis Schroeder played Milwaukee and went for 45 fantasy points, had his best game of the year. And
we just got the word.
Brandon Ingram.
Limit for Brandon Ingram.
Lock and load. Lock and load. Carmelo. Oh, that feels good. I mean, let's hold off. Let's hold off on that. Because we could talk. I mean, $7,200. So he's been like a 9K player this year.
Yeah.
But Dennis Schroeder, 45 fantasy points, his best game of the year on the second leg of a back-to-back. He played 30 minutes in that game. Just saying, maybe it's. I mean, look, he played 29 minutes last night and took 17 shots. I'm weary, but he's not a jump shooter. He goes to the basket. That's what he does. He attacks the rim. He took 1 3-pointer last night, so I'm not necessarily worried about the legs. Chris Paul, on the other hand, on the back-to-back, he played well in that Milwaukee game, but he only had 32 fantasy points. It was the Dennis Schroeder show. So just, something worth noting. I also think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in tournaments is fine because he shoots the ball so much.
He does. And back-to-back shouldn't really hurt him as much. Kind of the younger legs idea. And if you think that Paul's limited, then I think of course it makes sense that he ends up playing. So Gilgeous-Alexander is fine. If you want to go further down the list. Dylan Brooks, someone that you and I are big fans of course. Bad last game, but bad matchup overall. Denver,
yep.
Not a spot you expect most to actually compare with there. Lonzo, doubtful. Okafor, doubtful. So they won't rule them out, but unlikely to go there. So you have Brooks, and then you have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who we really want to play Alexander Walker.
Yeah.
I mean, but as you said, if Jackson's there, he's going to definitely see some minutes. Does he still play? Is he a play for you anyways? Brooks and Walker, if you had to pick between the 2?
Brooks is definitely in play for me over Walker. Just like the minutes were very unstable with Walker before these injuries, and I think Gentry probably notices that maybe he's their best option, but he's fending for minutes with Jackson, with Redick, with Etuan Moore. I mean, I don't know. 4,900 isn't the same price tag we were getting him. If he was like low fours, I think I'd be more inclined to play him. But even at that point, I would just end up playing Anthony Simons Dylan Brooks is 4,500, who has 30 real point upside against Warriors who don't play any defense. I mean, we've seen 30 from Brooks this year. We've seen 20 in 2 of the last 4 games. So I don't know. 4,500 seems like a misprice just because he played a really good team. Yeah, I mean, it was just a bad spot, and they dropped his price $600. I mean, that's kind of free. Like, it's kind of a free square. Honestly, I'm going to say it's a 4-game slate, and if you're playing cash, you're crazy. But if you are playing cash, I would play Dylan Brooks at 4,500 in cash games against the Warriors tonight. Yeah,
like I said, like even you look at the shots there during that good stretch, 15, 13, 17, like it's all there. So, I mean, I'm not going to hate it. I like that a lot. Let's see. There's probably no other value at shooting guard that you're entertaining, right?
What's Kent Bazemore? Is he a small forward? Spoiler alert.
I'm pretty sure Bazemore is a small forward on FanDuel. So
we could when we're going to small forward
over there. So go to small forward. LeBron James, lock him, put him in.
Lock and load. Yep.
For a reason, even in blowouts the other day against Atlanta, he still got you there. He had like 30 fantasy points in the first quarter. Something like absurd there. Ingram is 8,700 on FanDuel, but like you said, there's no minutes limit, and he's going to go up against Melo for 20 minutes. I mean, how do you go against a guy that was going for 26, 7, and 4 and like peripheral numbers on the defensive end as well? I mean, that's just like, almost a block and a steal per game going with that as well. So like, Ingram is an elite play if we trust that he's healthy to go. So I don't think you need to expand, too much on the top end there. If we're looking towards the mid-tier, at least on FanDuel, you have Oubre, Harrison Barnes, Danilo Gallinari, Alec Burks. What's your, any interest in that grouping?
We didn't talk about Bogdan, did we? Because I think he's...
Well, you touched upon...
quickly, the Kings.
At shooting guard, but I mean, if you want to go ahead and talk about Bogdan, go for it.
Well, he's playing like 60% of his time at small forward. That's just to look it up.
That's fine. Again, FanDuel doesn't care where they're playing.
They don't. I mean, that's been the best position to attack Phoenix this year. That's the only reason I have like all that interest. Plus 4 straight 30+ fantasy points games. I think we getting a floor of 30. And on slates like this, it's something that you and I preach almost, where we want floors on this kind of slate. Even in GPPs, like, we're not just out here looking for everybody to have ceiling games, because if LeBron goes for 60 or 50, even though that's, a little less than 5x, I mean, there are not a lot of people on this slate that can get 50. I mean, we're penciling in 50 points. So it's the same with Bogdan. We're penciling in at least 30. I think he's elite. I think Gallo's fine. I love Oubre if Ricky Rubio sits. 1.2 fantasy points per minute, almost a 28% usage rate with Rubio off the floor. We just saw it the other day against Atlanta, 47 fantasy points. That's the type of upside we were getting all of last year and earlier this year as well. I think Harrison Barnes, your boy, white bread,
just uber consistent.
You get the mayo, you get the turkey, you just have white bread and you cut it into 4 squares. That's Harrison Barnes. It's not like exciting. It doesn't taste bad. It just is what it is. Like,
the lunch pail work.
Yeah. It's it's your 9 to 5 lunch out on the whatever. I think he's fine. I think like you said, Ingram's an elite play. I don't love the rest of small forward. I love the spend downs, I guess you would say. I think Kent Bazemore is really sneaky tonight. I know Melo is starting. I get it. We don't know if he's starting at power forward or small forward, but like,
I feel like he's going to start at power forward.
I mean, that's what they wanted. Zach Collins got hurt, and they've needed a power forward since he got hurt. I think Nasir Little's minutes just disappear.
He probably gets cut in half. He'll play probably 15, instead of the 30 he was playing.
But like, I could see point Bazemore / a lot of Bazemore at the 2 tonight with McCollum playing point guard as well. I mean, if Simons isn't shooting the ball well and they want to, go a different direction, we've seen Bazemore run offenses in Atlanta. We've seen McCollum obviously handle the ball. I think $3,600 on DraftKings, and you said he's really cheap on FanDuel as well, right?
41, yeah.
I mean, I think again, we're taking shots in tournaments. He averages over a fantasy point per minute with Damian Lillard off the floor. Joe, that's kind of a route that I am just taking tonight just to be different. I mean, plus it saves a lot of money, $3,600 on DraftKings to get LeBron, to get Ingram. I have a center that I want to spend up on, so I really like Kent Bazemore down here at this bottom tier. I don't know if you have any other interest.
I mean, you pretty much nailed it. I think, on FanDuel at least, the player that you hinted at as a power forward option is actually a small forward. So if you want to go with him right now with the Suns and talk about him, we can. Or if you just want to wait a moment and go power forward. Is he a power forward only on DraftKings?
No, he's small forward, power forward. I just wasn't sure of what position.
Go for it. Talk about him.
So like we mentioned at the top, we have some front court issues with Phoenix and could potentially be without Aaron Baines. Could potentially be without Frank Kaminsky. And we've seen an uptick in Cam Johnson's minutes last 4, 2027, 2024. Not many blowouts. There was one blowout mixed in. We just saw 24 minutes. This is a guy who is known for his three-point shooting, and he's good on the glass. So we have a 3-and-D guy who is 6'8". I mean, they don't have a lot of front court depth as is. It's not like Sacramento runs out a massive lineup. They start a 6'7" Nemanja Bjelica at power forward. So this can kind of be the game that Cam Johnson sees near that 25-26 range mark. And it would only be more if we get an injury news on the Baines and Kaminsky front. Even Saric is a little banged up. They're literally all banged up playing the second leg of a back-to-back. So just another punch.
How much do you love if they actually started Booker at point guard today and put Johnson in the starting lineup?
He would be in. I would make 100 lineups and put
it would be like Kevin Porter starting yesterday for the Cavs, I think.
So, yeah, and if Kevin Porter just hit free throws, he goes for like 20x.
I know. He still had 28 fantasy points at what he had, but right, he's a terrible free throw.
He missed like 10 free throws last night. So what could have been, but like I'm just saying, he would be my version of your Kevin Porter.
Yep, I agree. That's fine. Power forward, we'll jump on over there. Anthony Davis at the top. Can't pay for him at 11.2. Can't pay for him at 9.8. Still too expensive. I said that on podcast last night. I think like the next time I play Anthony Davis is when he's like Russell Westbrook priced at like $8,000. Because he's just too risky and the upside isn't there with LeBron doing absolutely everything. So X him out. Then it goes down, at least on FanDuel. Jaren Jackson at $7,200. Draymond Green is a power forward on FanDuel. Small forwards point guard on DraftKings for whatever reason. He's 71. Rashawn Holmes, despite playing like every game at center this year for the Kings, is a power forward at 65. And then we hit Sean Mitchell's one of his favorite plays and Eric Paschall tonight. What's your take, I guess, in the quote-unquote top tier of the power forward position?
Definitely quote-unquote because it's not top tier by any stretch. Davis, Tormans, obviously, I'm totally with you. The Russell Westbrook thing. I'm following that exact protocol. It worked for me last night with Westbrook.
I was thinking, you tweeted it out like tonight's the night I play Russell Westbrook, and 68 fantasy points later.
I'm going to follow the exact protocol with Davis. He just doesn't look right. Same with Westbrook. He didn't look right, but sometimes a price is a price. Sometimes, but 9,800 is not that price. I love Paschall. The usage rate is a massive bump. He almost averages a fantasy point per minute. We saw 30 actual. We've seen this multiple times now with D'Angelo Russell at lineup where he's gone for 30 actual. Yep. And with Draymond running the point, it just opens up more for everyone else. I think Draymond's a great play, 6,200 on DraftKings, and I think 7,100 isn't even bad either. I think there's upside because we know the peripherals and the defensive stats could be there for Draymond. Holmes is fine. I really like the revenge narrative here with Holmes. I don't know why. I mean, it's just because the minutes, and I'm trying to get away from the revenge thing. I gotta break it. Nemanja Bjelica. That's where I want to go. That's where my head's at, over Holmes. Also a power forward, but 30 minutes in 2 of 3, 39 and 43.
He was in the starting 5 today from Vensey, so he's right there with you.
I mean, 5,500, and again, it's just they're playing these different lineups, different looks since the Aaron Fox went out, and playing Bogdan at point guard, which has allowed Bjelica to stay in the lineup at power forward. 5,500 is too cheap. Guy had double-doubles in 2 of 3. And the only reason I'm not on Jaren Jackson is because I'm on his teammate at the position next to him down on the block. So, I mean, I think Jaren Jackson is fine for tournaments, but I also love Jonas Valanciunas tonight.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about in the podcast. I said he was like, you're probably going to be your favorite play. He was all of our favorite plays, to be honest with you. But again, spoiler alert, we're all in on Jonas Valanciunas tonight. Kuzma, $5,400 on FanDuel. DraftKings, Kuzma's priced out at 53. Still only playing like 26 or so minutes, even though there's no restriction. But, you talk about how bad AD looks. I mean, that could be like a tilt here where Kuzma starts maybe, getting a little bit more looks to him.
He's just not doing it. It's he scores like 15 points and then grabs you 5 rebounds and then calls it a day.
Yeah, but I mean, he's giving you 5x at his price tag.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't have like a strong urge to play him tonight, but I don't think it's like the worst play ever.
If this game gets into a blow, maybe he would be the guy to go.
He probably would. He probably is the guy.
The extended minutes there.
He is the guy to get the extended run. You're right.
Just saying, AD's hurt. They go up 15. AD sits, and that's fine. Dario Saric, someone you've actually been on for a while. He's probable for tonight with a knee. But I mean, ever consistent 28, 32, 29 on FanDuel the last 3 games. I'm assuming for you, he's in against Sacramento.
Yeah, 29 minutes and 29 fantasy points per game over his last 4. It's just consistent. And last night you nailed it. We were talking about him and Covington, I believe, and you were like, yeah, I think Saric is my cash game guy.
Yeah.
30 fantasy points. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, he's good peripherally. Honestly, he's very good peripherally. He averages over a steal per game, and he's playing power forward. Like that's impressive. But again, I like Cam Johnson, so but you could play both. I think you could probably play both because Cam Johnson's spaces the floor, and Saric is more of a slashing big. So I like Saric. I think you can use Saric all formats.
I can't imagine that both Kaminsky and Baines end up being ruled out, but if one of them is, what are we on with Check Diallo? Because he's min price. He's min price. He's finally starting to see a little court time. Played a whole 5 minutes the other day against Boston. 4 points, 5 rebounds. I mean, we know that he's a point per minute monster, sort of, whenever he does get the run. If Baines is out, I think he has a better chance of getting minutes than if Kaminsky would get ruled out, because I think there's more people to play power forward than they would maybe consider putting at center. Again, just completely throwing darts against the wall here, but it is a 4-game slate. If Baines is out, if Kaminsky is out, do you have any interest in Diallo here?
Yeah, I think that is the lone situation where I check Diallo makes my player pool if both are ruled out.
Okay. Yeah, he probably starts if they're both ruled out, right?
If both ruled out, I would assume they'd start, or they'd, again, play a smaller lineup where they play Saric at the power forward, and they could play at center, and then play my boy Cam Johnson at power forward.
All right. Center position, Hassan Whiteside's at the top against the Pelicans, which I actually like this for him. I know he only played 26 minutes last night, but that was a blowout. Before that, he was playing over 30 minutes. He's going to go up against, Jackson Hayes, presumably, given the fact that Okafor is doubtful and Favors is already ruled out. So $8,200 on FanDuel. But below him is Jonas Valanciunas, who we've been going after Golden State centers all season long. It's the minutes that are a bit concerning because he barely ever plays more than 26, 27, it looks like, most nights. But, this is just a spot where he doesn't need all the minutes to go off. So I think you can take the savings there on FanDuel and play Jonas. On DraftKings, Jonas is actually more expensive than Whiteside. How are you considering the two?
Well, Whiteside 6,300 is super appealing, but it's really hard to ignore the matchup against Golden State, considering they're 29th. It's also interesting to know there's no back-to-back here for Memphis. Like, they do not play Wednesday. So I'm interested to see the minutes. And I think that we're going to see more minutes considering it's not a back-to-back. Obviously, it's been fluctuating 27, 23, 30, 22. But if you want to follow that pattern, I mean, this is the night that he's going to play 25 plus. So again, he put up 40 fantasy points playing 23 minutes against Charlotte in a good matchup. This is the same matchup, but maybe better. We think about last year when we were talking about attacking King centers because Cauley-Stein was there. Mm-hmm. This is exactly that situation. Cauley-Stein can't guard anybody down below. And Valanciunas is going to grab every rebound. Right. He's going to have like 16 fantasy points in the first 4 minutes of this game.
He normally does.
Literally in the first 4 minutes, he's going to have 16.
That's why I pull my hair out when I have started Triple J, because he does nothing for the first 10 minutes of the game, and then Jonas sits, and then Jackson goes and gets all of his fantasy points. So tonight I'm definitely with you guys, and if you listen to the podcast, as I'm sure you all did, you heard the excitement in the voices of Sean and myself over the prospects of playing Valanciunas here, and that's basically because the rest of the position's horrible. As you mentioned, Cauley-Stein, nah. I liked Adams last night, actually. I talked about it. He was in the playbook. He was on podcast, live stream. Even convinced Sean to play him, and he put up 34 fantasy points for him, giving you almost 7x return against the Clippers, because you can go ahead and just attack that position for them. Yep. Not so much really against the Lakers. I understand McGee and Howard and Davis all there. Not necessarily the great players they once were, but it's just not really a spot, I think, for Adams, given the spread and everything. So to me, it was really always Valanciunas, maybe Whiteside on DraftKings, and then Jackson Hayes, who should play, I would assume, like he did the other day, 31 minutes. I kind of compared him to sort of Nerlens Noel. They're longer, athletic. They score around the rim. They don't much have touch outside it. They can block shots and get you some steals. So I think what we saw against Golden State, the 10-10, 3 blocks, and a steal should be close to what we can do tonight for him, I think, against Portland. Sean was worried because, it's tougher to rebound maybe against Whiteside, but I don't really know if that's as much the case anymore. Whiteside mostly just gets his defensive rebounds, he doesn't really, stop, the other team from boxing out or anything like that. So, and we just saw Capella go for 20 boards off him. Right. So, I think Hayes is still in a good spot. 4,800 on FanDuel. Over on DraftKings, Hayes priced out at 49. So again, punt position if you want to go there. You can play them both on DraftKings if you want, but I think Valanciunas is the spend up for me on FanDuel.
What do you think if Aaron Baines plays down to 4.9K on DraftKings, Sean? I mean, we've seen 60. I'm not saying we're going to get 60, but
my question is, I don't know. I mean, he's obviously starting to fall off, he's come back to earth. He wasn't the 60 fantasy point play, which, by the way, guess who we did that against? Golden State. So, everybody can go up against Golden State and put up points, play Jonas. I don't know. I'm not going to go there. I understand the value behind the salary and the role that he's going to have, but, again, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like he's starting to hit his ceiling there and becoming the Aaron Baines that I know and love.
I'd also want to throw Dwight Howard's hat into the ring, just as a tournament play, 4,700. He didn't score, or he didn't make a field goal, and he gave us 20 fantasy points. And OKC gave up 55 fantasy points to Montrezl Harrell last night, who played center. And now OKC is in the bottom 10 in the league against center position. Just as a tournament dart,
would you do him or McGee? I mean, I know you mentioned him, but do you have any interest in McGee at all? I mean, McGee broke the slate against Golden State.
He did. I think Dwight has been more consistent. If we were to get Anthony Davis out, then I would probably lean McGee because we saw what he did with Davis out. So I think that's how it would go. Dwight if Davis plays, McGee if he doesn't.
Every center on this slate has done a ton of damage against Golden State while not playing 30 minutes. which bodes very well for Jonas tonight. Whiteside had a double-double, 22 and 11 and 28. Baines put up 60 and 28. McGee put up 55 in 27 minutes. So that's like the wheelhouse for Jonas Valanciunas tonight. So go ahead. I think, even more so, you can kind of just lock and load Val in your lineups tonight. That's the end of our propaganda, I think, on the Senators against Golden State, though. James, we kind of flew through this. We kind of expected to. Small slate, kind of run out of things to talk about here. So any final thoughts before we jump off?
Now, playbook is out. Optimal lineup should be coming out shortly. All the rest of the site content is out, and we're just kind of waiting injury news. So make sure you stay by your phones, stay by your computers, and update things as they flow in.
Yep. All right, guys. 8 o'clock roster lock tonight. So good luck, everybody.